Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of D4C Connects. It is great to be back in a very special edition. We've upgraded our studio here, you can tell, because we have Dr. Randy Hamilton here with us today. Dr. Hamilton was the owner and really the mastermind of building the iKids dynasty, I think is a fair way to call it, in Texas, and affiliated with D4C about a year ago. And it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to work with you, and I'm looking really forward to kind of talking about your journey and how you came to work with us here at D4C. So introduce yourself to the podcast world here.
Randy, great to be here. Love the new studio. It's great. From Dallas, Texas, born, raised. After high school, left for about 20 years, played around in different things, and finally decided that Texas was a place to be, so came back to Texas, and that's where the journey of iKids actually started. And preparing to get back to Texas and knowing that I would be opening up my dental offices, from the beginning I knew that it was going to be more than one, for sure.
Yeah. And
I wanted to get away from that, as I've said before, that traditional aspect of dentistry. And what I mean by that is that the same old adage of walking into a medical, a dental office, any type of healthcare office, and it was always the same thing.
Yep.
You would walk in and there'd be those closed glass windows, and you'd walk up and someone would open that glass window and hand you that clipboard, and then they'd close it on you and you'd have to go fill it out and then wait for them to get off the phone maybe, and they'd open the glass window and take that clipboard from you. And it was the same thing over and over. And then the dental assistant or medical assistant would open the door and yell your name across the entire waiting room. And by tradition, because we had always gone with our parents, we knew that when our name was yelled, we were just supposed to stand up and walk all the way over there. And it never changed. And I never understood why that customer service never entered the healthcare industry like it did in the entertainment world like Disney, or the hotel industry like the Ritz-Carlton, even the food world like Chick-fil-A, if you will. And I wanted to bring that customer service, that patient experience to the healthcare industry, and that's kind of where iKids was founded. So initially, when you walk into that iKids, it is a welcome from the beginning, and it's a sincere welcome, not just where you hear this welcome, but it is a standing up, smiling. You really feel that you are part of iKids family as soon as you walk in, and that's what we wanted to display. When our assistant opens the door, they don't just open the door and yell the name. They open the door, shut it behind them, walk all the way up to the guest, formally introduce themselves, escort them back.
Yeah.
And then when you get in the back, we make sure that we follow Sam Walton's old 10-foot rule. And that's when you're within 10 feet of someone, you smile, you make eye contact, and you speak. And it is amazing what happens when a mother or a father that have had a rough day or a rough morning, and all of a sudden they get 10 good mornings or 10 hellos. It's hard not to smile back and eventually respond, right? And that's really where iKids started off, was with this customer experience, this patient experience, customer service, and started with one office, and eventually in 10 years grew to 16 offices.
Wow.
And it wasn't without trial and error or mistakes, right? For sure, conferences that I would go to with DSOs would teach me things that I wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. And over the first few years, I realized that I needed to centralize everything.
Yep.
And that did two things for me. It kept me ahead of my growth, because it's so difficult to play catch up.
Sure.
And two, it also helps with the patient experience. Yeah. When you take what I always call the unfun stuff and put them in a central area, and that way our offices can focus just on the parents, just on the children. So as we are continuing to grow, I remember someone at a conference walking up to me and said, you know what, as you build these many offices, you're going to lose that customer service, because that corporate dentistry, you can't have the same customer service as you can in a private office. And I love a challenge. Right? So anytime someone says that I can't do something, that is when I want to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
So I came up with this this different company we called it NEDAC Institute, and that's a whole another story how I named that. It's hard to come up with different names, so I took one of my son's names and just turned it around backwards, and that's where NEDAC came from. And with NEDAC Institute, it was an 8-hour accredited course just on customer service in the healthcare industry, from how to answer phones to how to talk to parents, and so on. And every one of our team members, when they came onto iKids, would have to take this 8-hour accredited course. And that allowed all the offices to be standardized and follow the same guidelines in customer service. And this proved to be so efficient that all of a sudden a corporate structure, a large group of offices, could have that same customer service and give that same patient experience that you have in one little office. So we continued to grow, and we get to the point to where I knew that I was leveraged out so much that I could not continue to grow anymore. And when you have something that is so great, you want to share that with the world, right? So then, in order to share it, you have to continue to grow. So I had to find a way to increase my capital. In order to increase my capital, I knew that I had to partner with someone that was larger than I was. So that's where I had to decide if I wanted to share iKids with a larger DSO or partner with a private equity. Since we already had our platform, that would have been easy to do as well. And that's where it comes into something that is more personal. And it wasn't an easy decision that you just make overnight. And you look at private equity, you look at that DSO market, and you tell yourself, what is it you want to do over the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And for me, it made more sense to go with a larger DSO. And started looking at all the major players, and they would come to me, and over the past few years they had been coming to me, as well as a few private equity firms too. So I had to start narrowing it down, and I started talking to all the major players out there, and it came down to basically 7 questions.
What did you use to filter this? How did you
myself.
think about weeding through?
And going through that weeding process, it came down to, like I said, 7 points that I would recommend anyone that is looking to sell their office, whether it be to another associate, to a DSO, to private equity, that they take these 7 points down. And the first one is, you have to be able to get along with the executive team. So you have the CEO, the CFO, the COO. You have your just executives. The directors, and you have to be able to get along with all of them. And when I say get along, it's not just talk on the phone, but can you go to a baseball game with them? Can you hang out with them? Can you go eat with them and you're laughing and not talk about dentistry, but talk about life and still enjoy yourself and have a good time?
The backyard barbecue test.
That's exactly right. And that is so important, because you're going to be married to these guys for for the next however many years. Second point, do you share the same values? Do you share the same goals, philosophy, vision? And if those match up, then let's move on to number 3, and that is, do your leadership styles align? Because if your leadership styles align, it's going to be a long 5, 10, 15 years how long you're partnering with them. Next, number 4, I think is do they approve and like the way that you run your business? And the opposite side can be said the same thing. Do you like the way that they run their business? So a larger DSO, I had 16 offices already, so I was looking at these larger DSOs that had 100, 200, 300 offices. Do I like the way that they are running their business? Do their businesses align together? And we've talked about this before. Is it just a group of offices that this DSO is going in and collecting, or are they one office group, which is all aligned and standardized? And that's what I was looking for. That allowed me to know that they were organized and together. And after that, you look and see, what are the changes that are going to be made? And so many DSOs would come to me and say, Dr. Hamilton, we want your company, and we're not going to make any changes at all. And you have to almost have no common sense to think that, that is actually the case.
Yep.
And as much as they want to say that no changes are going to be made, some changes are going to happen. And you have to know what those are, and hopefully the DSO that you're partnering with will be open enough to tell you what those changes are.
That's such a great point. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who kind of had this assumption. I forget what it was. I think she was so confident that every DSO was going to change the insurance that they accepted in the office, and so that was an assumption that she had, and so that was one of her hesitancies for DSO. She said, "Well, I've spent a lot of time kind of negotiating these contracts, and I've got the carriers that I like, and I don't want anybody to mess with that." And I said, "Well, gosh, D4C doesn't mess with that." And so I think the point is, and there might be some things that we might change but the point is, have that conversation. Don't go in with kind of these preconceived notions of what's going to change or what's not going to change. To your point, I think it's a great point.
Knowing is half the battle. As they say, right? And if you know and there's that communication, then it's all good. You can get through it. So know what number 5 was. Know what changes they are going to make. Number 6. What was number 6? The financials of the company. These DSOs come in and all of a sudden they want to do their QV with you, and they want to know every detail from who I took to dinner, what vacations I had, or such, and they want to know where every penny was spent. Well, it's only fair to know the financials of the DSO. And even further, if it's a larger DSO, that means that there's a private equity backing them. What are the financials of that private equity? How strong are they? And even though private equities have investors, no one likes to use their own money. Everyone wants to use borrowed money, so that means that every private equity has a bank that is backing them. What is that bank like? Who is it? Find these things out. And last, and I think the most important, this is your baby. You have grown this office. You have put in your blood, sweat, tears. Are you ready to let go? And if you are not ready to let go, it's going to be a very tough sell. A lot of sleepless nights.
That's a good point.
But once you are ready to let go, that's when you can enjoy the ride.
And so you went through that process, and you kind of filtered everybody through the 7. Ultimately, decided D4C was going to be your partner.
There was only at the end of that filter. There was only one company that matched all those 7 points, and it was D4C. And their values completely matched with mine. Their vision of taking care of children completely matched with mine. They care more about the child experience than anything else. And what I loved, I'd met with the CEO, and he had told me a couple of stories where they walked away from some companies that wanted to be transitioned with them, but it just wasn't a right fit. And for a company to be able to walk away from some big opportunities, that says a lot about the company. Also, what inspired me about D4C is that they are a specialty DSO only, just like I am. So, and not knocking any DSOs, there's great DSOs out there, but they are a mixture of general dentists and different specialties. But when you focus just on a specialty, that is when that perfection comes to play. And none of us are perfect, but we all strive to have that perfection. And we want to be flawless. And if you focus on that one specialty, that's when you can become closer to that flawlessness than anything else. So ultimately, D4C was the perfect match for iKids Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics.
It's been a great ride with you, and we've learned a lot from you. And that was one of the things. Kind of 2 more questions here, and then we'll round this out because I know I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, tell me about kind of your, how were you able to take the 16 offices that you grew and kind of lead those into a larger leadership role? Because not everybody wants to do that, right? Some people say, look, I kind of want to just get back in the mouth and only do the mouth and get rid of all leadership responsibility. You said, hey, I'm hungry. I want to do more. And so we were able to plug that in. So tell a little bit about kind of how that's worked.
Well, sure. So again, I'd already proven the model that even going into a larger DSO, you can still have that same customer service. So that wasn't a concern for me.
Yeah.
And in all these conversations that we had, I knew that we would still have the autonomy as iKids. So it was a matter of talking to my entire team and letting them know that we are still iKids. We are just joining a partner that's going to give us the support we need, that we can continue to share what we know to be so great.
Yeah.
And the way that I said it was that D4C is coming in, they're basically going to give iKids a steroid shot. And with that steroid shot, that's going to help us do what we do best, continue to grow and take care of these children.
Yeah.
And were there hiccups along the way? Of course. Sure. I'd be lying to say that there weren't. But none of them were such that they couldn't be overcome. Right. Was there some turnover? Of course. Yeah. I had people that were with me for forever, and they just looked at that as a time for change. Yeah. I guess. So they, some of my long term people actually left the whole dental industry and wanted to start something on their own. Yeah. And they kind of used it as, gosh, iKids has transformed and evolved. And I really don't like the word change. Change is a negative connotation for a lot of people. So we always use the word evolve. Yep. And they just wanted to evolve, and they wanted to try something else as well. And there's no animosity. We left with great feelings, and we continue to move forward.
And having that transparency up front.
100%. And this year has been absolutely wonderful. Yeah. And I come from a background of sales. Yeah. So I grew up in sales. I'll even admit that I was a car salesman at one time, and grew up in the furniture business, selling furniture, and played in the corporate world a little bit before dental school. And the one thing that you always see in sales is that buyer's remorse, or in this case, seller's remorse. And I can honestly say that if I had to do it all over again, I would sell to D4C, and I would do the same thing.
That's great. Well, that's music to our ears, obviously, and it's been a great partnership. Last question for you, and then we'll keep people excited about tuning in for the next one. You talked about that financial piece and why that was important to know who's backing you. In particular here at D4C, one of the things that we're able to offer sellers is the ability to, when you sell your practice, to obviously get cash, but then roll some of that cash into equity into D4C as a whole. So you kind of take your dollars and go from 16 offices to being able to be part of the 200 plus offices. Tell me a little bit about that and kind of your thought process there, and perhaps why that might be a little unique, compared to some of the other structures that you were presented with.
Sure, 100%. So when you believe in something and you believe in it 100%, you want to be a part of that. And I wasn't ready to completely let go, so D4C offered me an opportunity to reinvest a certain percentage, and I did. And the unique thing about that is that I'm not just reinvesting in iKids, I'm able to reinvest into the entire company. Yeah. And it's Class A shares, which is unusual for DSO to offer Class A shares. And not only that, I've had many doctors come and say, what do you do with your associates? Well, your associates also have the opportunity to invest in those same Class A shares that the doctor owner has. And that is unique.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dr. Hamilton, it has been an absolute privilege and pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us for the first upgraded studio D4C Connects podcast episode, and look forward to next time.
Andy, thanks so much.
Of course. Thanks. See you guys next time.